Experian can and could help me easily.
The enemy wants to hijack your attention so that you can reflect your doubt, so that you can reflect fear, so that you can wonder and worry whether or not God's going to come through for you. And the more that you are reflecting what the enemy has placed inside of you, the less capable you are of reflecting the image of God in the earth. That's the enemy's plan, to get your attention. Because if I have your attention, you're not in position. If I have your attention and all you're worried about is you and what you lack and where you're coming up short and your shame and your history, if all you're worried about you'll never do what God called you to do. The enemy distracted the man and the woman with themselves. And you're so worried about you that you can't do what God has called you to do, which is perfect for the enemy and a tragedy for a generation. Because we need people who are more concerned about embodying what it means to reflect the image of God than to reflect their own pride, their own ambition, their own shame. Imagine who you would be if you didn't worship your fear, if you didn't worship your shame, and instead you worship the God who says, I can clean you up, I can make you white as snow, I can help you walk into a new version of who you are. Being made in the image of God and reflecting that image requires us to shift our focus so that we can embody the call of Genesis 1:26-27. I want to put it on the screen for me. I want to read it to you. It says, then God said, let us make man in our image according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea. Okay, so wait a minute. Let's pause there. So I am made in the image of God on earth. And I am made in his likeness on earth. Not just so that I can have a God complex. Not just so that I can feel big and bad. But because in order for me to do what God has called me to do, I cannot do it in my own image. In order for me to have dominion, in order for me to have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. Then it goes on in verse 27, he created man in his own image. He talks about subduing. You got to read all of Genesis 1. In order for me to step into that, it hinges on my ability to fully embody what it means to be made in the image of God. There are some things that you want to do in the earth that allows you to have dominion. But in order for you to successfully have dominion, you have to first master reflection. When I master reflection, I do not have to worry about staying on top. When I master reflection, I don't have to worry about who's for me or who's against me. When I master reflection, I don't have to beg anybody to give me anything. When I master reflection, there is nothing that can be withheld from me because God has already placed it in my hand. When I master reflection, you can like me or not like me. I'll be okay either way because I've mastered reflection. You got to master reflection. And if you're going to master reflection, you have to take the time to stare at who your God is. I don't mean come to church. I mean you got to stare at him until you love what you see. Some of us only stare at God long enough to get what we need. And if it doesn't look like he's going to give us what we need, we shift our attention to something else. But there is something powerful to be said about learning to behold who God is. Because Because when we behold him, oh God, hallelujah, hallelujah. When we behold him, nothing can take our attention away. See, someone said, I've tasted and seen. Oh, to behold God is to look at how he has shown up and to draw a conclusion about who he is. I call him holy because I saw him remain holy even when I was filthy. I call him patient because I saw the way he waited on me. You got to behold who your God is. You can't just hear about him. You got to